All right, in this video, we're going to talk about the planetary placement of a planet in a sign and what it indicates. And we're going to talk about things like planetary dignity, Jaimini's first source of strength, as well as start getting into a discussion of the Vargas and or the divisional charts. So once again, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to watch my humble little video, and hopefully you're here because you want to hear what I have to say. And if you like what I have to say, I ask that you please subscribe to my channel below, because that way you'll have more access to when I create more videos. Also, if you like what you see, thumbs up it. If you don't like it, thumbs down it. And don't watch it. I mean, that's always the best thing. If you don't like it, don't watch it. But anyway, so what are we watching? We're watching a video here about talking about planetary placement. We're talking about planets and signs. So first and foremost, we're talking about planets and signs. Before you can talk about planets, before you can talk about signs and what it's going to mean by combining these two things, we have to be able to understand what each of these things means. We need to be very strong in our basics, very strong in our understanding of what these planets indicate, very strong in understanding what these signs indicate by knowing their specific individual qualities, but also what they represent by their baseline nature. And through memorization, then we can start integrating this information, because that's exactly what we're going to be doing when we're talking about looking at a planet in a sign. We have to integrate what that planet's energy means at a baseline level. Forget about what that planet rules as a house lord, by what house it rules and what other planets it rules. But let's just talk about planet in a sign, just understanding the baseline nature of that planet in that sign. What is a planet? The active conscious force, the active forces of consciousness. It's like taking our entire consciousness, our perception, and breaking it down into 9 different planets, and that's 9 different divisions, and then assigning each one of those to a planet. And then at the same time, what is the signs? The signs are like the fields, breaking the field of life down into 12 different slices or categories, 12 different types of environments. And so signs are like the fields where the consciousness is happening. So what we're looking at, we've got a planet and a sign. We're looking to see where that specific type of conscious force is happening at, and what are the events that what does that field look like where it's working? Is that a field where that planet's going to be able to produce easily? So that's one thing we'll be looking at, and that's when we'll get into planetary dignity, is how well the planet can perform. But first, what we need to look at is the characteristics and the qualities of that field that it's operating in, because that is oh so important to understanding planetary dignity. And so when we're talking about planetary dignity, what happens when we put a planet in a sign is we get an idea of how well, based on that planet's natural inclination, its natural force that it's trying, its natural agenda, of how well, with more ease or more hardship, it is going to operate. Is it going to use its energy in a very efficient manner, or is it going to use its energy that's going to incur more difficulties, take more time, be kind of harder for it to naturally express itself through the chart? And that's what planetary dignity is all about. But planetary dignity, now a big part of planetary dignity, there's 2 parts of it. Planetary dignity is first about just that planet in that sign. How is it going to manifest and it's basing, planetary dignity is basing on that planet by its relationship to the Lord of that sign. Are they naturally friends, naturally enemies, or is it exalted or debilitated there? And then the second part of planetary dignity, if the planet's not exalted in that sign, if the planet is not debilitated in that sign, then the next thing we look at is where the lord of that sign is. Anyhow, we're not going to quite get into it. There's 7 different planetary dignities, and it's all about how well that planet will express itself, how it will produce itself while it's in that sign. A planet will also give you an idea of a planet in a sign gives you idea of avasthas, or planetary states, like states of consciousness. Will it indicate more frustration? Will it indicate more pride? Will it indicate more of a deep sense of need? All sorts of different states depending upon the planet and the sign, the planets that it's within that sign and everything. But anyhow, so that's what we're getting an inclination for. And so when it always comes to these things, when we're looking at the dignity, when we're looking at the avasthas, the basis of why that planet moves, or why that planet would produce better, or why that planet would produce less, then it's because of those characteristics and qualities and the marriage of those two things, of that energy of the planet with that qualities, characteristics, and nature of that sign. So that is so important to understand. Because one of the things of the pitfalls of looking at a planet in a sign is, a lot of times, especially when we become very proficient at looking at of understanding planetary dignity and the relationships of a planet being placed in that sign by knowing its natural relationship with the other planets, it's so easy to look at something like Sun in Libra and go, Sun's debilitated. Well, first and foremost, like, that's great to be able to know that, because here's the thing is that I can default to that. I can look at a chart and immediately be able to tell you every planetary dignity in that chart. That's great and all, but the thing is, that person that has that chart with that Sun in Libra, where the Sun is, it's debilitated. Well, here's the thing, is that is how that person's energy of the Sun, that's how it's going to manifest their entire life. So to say that your Sun's debilitated, it's like all your karaka of the Sun are going to function at the lowest level. And is that the case? So the Sun is the karaka for the body. So does that mean that this person has a debilitated body? Does that mean that everybody with Sun in Libra is going to be handicapped or debilitated in some restraint, and that every other sign they're going to be okay? That's not the case. And so it's important to always keep in mind, first and foremost, the planet in a sign by connecting the characteristics and qualities of both the planet and the sign and seeing how those merge together. That's the most important thing. Then think about the debilitation aspect of the Sun in Libra and why a Sun is debilitated there. And then the other thing of why a person with the Sun in Libra may not be this person with a low solar energy in their chart, of a debilitated body. And why is that? Because one of the things that each of the signs also indicates, each one of these Rasis, depending on where that planet is placed in that Rashi, is going to tell us in which divisional charts that planet will be placed in. So if you know anything about astrology, if you've been studying Vedic astrology for at least, a year, and you're going through other teachers, you've heard of something called the Navamsha chart. So the Navamsha chart is basically breaking down those 30 degrees of that sign into groups of 3 degrees and 20 minutes apiece. So 3 degrees and 20 minutes times 9 equals 30 degrees. So depending on that, where that Sun falls in Libra, in which Navamsha, is going to place it in a different sign in the Navamsha chart, which is going to be is going to be erecting another 12 sign chart and placing the Sun in a different house. So a Sun that is in, for example, the 7th Navamsha of Libra, which would place it between 20 degrees and 23 degrees and 20 minutes of Libra, even though it is debilitated in the Rashi chart, it's going to be exalted in the sign of Aries in the Navamsha chart. So it's very important to understand that. It's going to place it in, that is correct. in the 7th Navamsha. And so it's very important to understand these things that and so that's going to give a whole different coloration as to how Aries will be performing. Or I'm sorry, how that sun will, in Libra in the birth chart is going to be performing by seeing how it performs in all the other Varga charts. According to Parashara, there are 16 other Varga charts to use. So, or I'm sorry, 15 other besides the Rashi, for a total of 16 Vargas, divisional charts to use. So a planet placed in Libra in the birth chart is going to tell us, or I'm sorry, that sun placed in Libra in that birth chart is going to tell us by its specific degree where it falls in the other 15 charts. And chances are it's actually impossible through the calculations of all the Varga charts for a planet to fall in the same Rashi in every single one. There is certain combinations and possibilities where that planet falls in the same Varga in 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 different charts, but it can't be in the same one in all of them, which means in the Vargas are sort of like looking further into certain aspects of our lives, like looking closer into it. So it's very, very important to understand that. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about is when we're looking at planets and signs, one of the things, according to Jaimini, there's a source of strength. Jaimini's first source of strength is the the sign that holds the most planets. And if there's two signs that hold the same amount of planets, there's all these different determinations to basically judge which sign is actually stronger, so that you find out which sign is the strongest. But anyhow, so what I wanted to get into in this conversation of planets and Rashis is planet in a Rashi also shows you which Rashi is going to hold the most karma, by where it's showing you where that the person's karma is coming into the field of activity. And so if you're looking at a Rashi and it's got 6 planets in it, and you start, well, then you know that, okay, I know that this person is going to be experiencing a lot of karma, or a lot of, however you want to use that word karma, a lot of experiences in their life are going to unfold in this particular container, this environment, this arena, this field. And based upon the qualities of that, you could probably describe that sign to that person that has 6 planets in that Rashi. And they're going to be like, yeah, again, we were talking about Libra. They've got 6 planets in Libra. They'd be like, yeah, I've spent all my life in a city. So much of my life has to do with me going to the marketplace. And you're like, but I'm really struggling with that. Because if you can imagine, so like if signs represent the containers and the environments, and you have a lot of planets in one sign, what that's going to show is that's going to show where the most activity is happening in that person's life. And if you think about having a lot of planets in a sign, what that's kind of like is, imagine each planet as an independent contractor with a different specialty. Like maybe one planet is the contractor that does painting, and then one contractor does cabinetry and cabinet work. One is like the interior designer, right? That's putting all the specific nice looking things in there, and then one is the flooring expert that's doing the tile. So if you put all 4 of those contractors in the kitchen at the same time, I mean, they're going to be fighting for the same space. And that's what we're getting with a lot of planets in the same sign, is you're getting a lot of energy of those planets coming to the same environment, trying to accomplish their independent goals. And so if you were to bring up, so if you had a person with those 4 contractors all working, trying to do their independent job at the same time inside of your kitchen, you could just describe the kitchen to the person. You'd be like, yeah, I bet, you have a lot of, you've had some issues with the kitchen. They're like, oh my gosh. And that's the idea of Jaimini's first source of strength, and why it's And it's always important. And what I find with Jaimini's first source of strength, it's also kind of where the eye goes. The first time you open your astrology software and you look at that person's chart, where your eye is going to go is where the most amount of energy is naturally going to be occurring in that person's life. And that's what we get when we know the planets and signs. We can talk about that and speak of that. So anyways, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. This is the start of looking at planets and signs. So let me just summarize. Planets and signs, never forget, the most important thing is to look at the indications of what that planet is and what that sign represents and marry those two qualities together. Then we can start applying things like how well it performs. Well, Sun in Libra is going to be a person that is, trying to express their kingdom while listening to other people. And so think about that. You have the king stuck in parliament, right? He's going to have 20 different advisors all trying to tell him what to do. And so that's why the sun is debilitated in Aries, because the person seeks a lot of other opinion, an outside opinion. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only way the sun's going to perform, because of the different Varga charts. So maybe that's kind of their life in general, is they are always looking for other people's advice. It's not always a bad thing. But then let's say in their in the chart of relationships, the Varga chart of relationships, that would be the Saptamsha chart, the sun is exalted right there, right? The sun is in Aries in that chart. Well, then that would indicate that that person is, even though they're always asking for other people's opinions in their life, they're also going to be the sun exalted in that chart of relationships, meaning that this is the type of person, though, that is going to take the lead, that is going to be very initiating and strong about what it is that they want from a relationship. This could be very much the leader of their relationships that they get involved in. That's just an idea, and to understand that's why the Varga charts are important. But it's always important when we're looking at dignity and avasthas to always think about these qualities of the karaka, the nature of the planet, and the nature of the sign, marrying them together. And then also just by having a bunch of planets in one sign, then that can show a field where a lot of the karma in that chart is going, or that person's life is going to be happening at. So anyhow, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. And if you like it, please subscribe to my channel, give it a thumbs up, and namaste.